Good. Welcome to a session. Just going to share screen with you. We're going to go through a problem-solving approach today. So just checking that everybody can see the screen all right. Yeah, everyone see the PowerPoint screen? Always like to check. I ran a session the other day and got through 4 slides before somebody said, we can't see anything. Okay, so problems or challenges, we often come across them. And so here's the first one. Alan said I'm hands-on. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to get a ball, and I'd like you to get a bat, and I'd like you to bounce it up 5 times. And the first person to do that wins a prize. Off you go. So there you go. There's your first challenge. We've lost Phil already. He works for a sports company, and there you go. You see, he's found a ball and he's found a makeshift bat, and he's already solving the problems. And so Phil wins the imaginary prize. So I don't know how it felt for you when you then had that suddenly thrown at you. You weren't expecting it. There was no warning of it. Suddenly it came along. And what we have with situations is sometimes problems or challenges suddenly appear. Sometimes it's not suddenly appeared. We can see it coming on the horizon. We can plan for it. And I'm going to go through some strategies today that will help you with both of those particular techniques. When we're suddenly thrown with a problem, what tends to happen is we react. We either react with a fight or a flight mechanism. And for some of us, actually, we will instantly go, right, I'm going to tackle this. And actually, we saw that with Phil. He goes, right, I haven't got a bat and a ball, but what have I got to hand? What can I use? What can I use as makeshift? What can I bring together? And for some of us, maybe it really suits the context. So actually, in Phil's case, works for a sports company. Of course, he's going to have a ball around with him. But for some of us, we're thinking, where can I find a ball? This is just completely come left field. But the approach we're going to have today will hopefully help you to deal with that. You see, sometimes we are just progressing really quite nicely. Our staff, our facilities, our resources are all doing fine. And then we hit an obstacle or a change. For example, coronavirus suddenly kicks in and we need to adapt. We need new human procedures, or we need to adapt our facilities or our resources. And so we're going to go through some processes. And what we're going to do today is we're actually going to model that in an example. And the example is going to happen is we are all part of a fictional company. And what has happened is our sales have dropped. Now, for the purpose of this, because we're quite used to sales and everything else dropping during coronavirus, for the purpose of this, it won't be because of coronavirus. We're just going to assume that we're back to semi-normal or normal, and that actually our sales have dropped or have started to drop, and we've spotted this. And so we're then faced with, well, how do I solve this problem? Now, what tends to happen is we rush in with a quick change. Well, I'll spend on a big ad campaign, or I'll drop my prices, or I'll just give up, or I'll develop a new product, or I'll have a sale. We'll just grab at something that we think will be a quick fix, or that maybe somebody else has done in the past. But then what tends to happen is we've rushed in with this change. Now, all of these things could be some really good solutions, but we need to know whether they're the right solution for the root of the problem that we have. And if we rush in with a change, it might be that we'll waste money or time, or actually not even solve the issue. So with a problem-solving process, what tends to happen is there is a problem. And so what actually tends to happen with a lot of people is they just do something, but they miss 2 important parts of the process. For some people, they go, oh, I'll plan something and then I'll put it into operation. But they're still missing a key part. It starts with a good review. Reviewing your current position. What do I have to hand? What's working well? What isn't working quite so well? But most importantly, getting to the root of the problem in the first place. Then when you've had your review, then you plan creatively. And as we go through the process today, you'll see ways that we can do that. Then you put it into operation. Now, again, what a lot of people tend to do is they if they're really good, they might do a review. If they're really good, they might plan. And if they're really good, they then put it into operation. But then they miss the next part again, which is to review. Actually, is it working? What I put in place, is it working? Because sometimes we'll put something in place and it'll have a brilliant effect. Sometimes we'll put something in place and it'll have an okay effect, but sometimes it won't work at all. But it's about reviewing what is working well now, because you're in a new position. Is it that what I put in place really isn't fit for purpose? Is it fit for purpose but needs a tweak? Or is it brilliantly fit for purpose and it solved all my problems? So this review and this process of constantly doing that is a key part of problem solving. So with problem solving, again, what I'm going to do is give you various different layers that you can use to tackle this. And in one simple terms, there's a coaching acronym of GROW, and that helps you to problem solve. For some of you, when you've done a previous session with me, we've looked at that before. But it's effectively really getting to define the problem. What actually is it I want to achieve? And we'll go through that in a moment. What's my current reality, good and bad? Examine the causes that might sit at the root of your problem. And then think about the options. Think about creating solutions. And so you list a whole range of possibilities in a creative way and leave yourself open. Even the wacky ideas can come in at this point. And then consider and weigh up the pros and cons. And then you evaluate out of all of those, which is the best way forward, and select the solution that will get you the best gain. Now that's if you are facing a problem, but equally it's the same with innovating. So you perhaps are quite used to doing something and it's okay, but you think something could be done even better or a new way of doing things. And it's being really clear what you want as your end goal in mind. And then investigating actually what is it then? What's the reality? What is current good practice? What needs to change? What could be even better? But really getting to the root of what is the problem? What could be even better? And asking yourself why? So someone like Bob, who's with us today, he's innovated recently. Bob, and so just to explain to Phil, when the conversation, Bob's probably with his drinks. Bob runs a drinks company, and you can see by his background that he runs a drinks company. And so he decided recently, I'm going to innovate. And so he knows he's really good at running the parties for people, and decided actually the cocktails that we make, we could actually sell these. And so he innovated in doing some great cocktails. I saw an advert recently of somebody on Twitter saying, I want to promote this. It's great. They're really tasty. And because he went through some of this process and looked at different ways, he was curious. He reimagined what his cocktails could look like, and actually could he sell them in a different way. And so this approach can be used if actually things are okay, but you think, could they be even better? And you've got this on your handout, just being curious, just actually also challenging some of the strongest principles and just pushing back against them. Actually, is there some flex here? Could I do things slightly different? And another one that I think is really important that a lot of people perhaps forget is to collaborate. Think about other fields. Now, I don't mean we're in the countryside, look at fields, but actually, if you, for example, work in the drinks industry, then looking, well, is there anything from the sports industry? Or if you're in the sports industry, asking, actually, is there anything from the creative media industry that I could learn from here? And so asking yourself in different fields, what can I learn? And so I used to be in education, and I want education to be asking, is there anything in the business industry that could be learned here? I want people in business to be asking, actually, is there anything in the education sector that we could learn or borrow from here that could be innovative? So what we're going to do in a minute is we're going to work through this together. This could be chaotic as we open up microphones, but what I'd like you to do to make it slightly easier is give me a wave. And actually what we'll then do is between Kate and I, we will unmute you if you can't unmute yourself, but you see if you can unmute yourself. And I'm going to involve you in the process. So I'm going to share a different sheet with you that we're going to work through. So you've got your handouts with you, and on this kind of second page, we're actually going to work through the first section together with this imaginary company whose sales have dropped, and we're going to work through this process. We're going to be fairly snappy this morning. If you really have a big problem, you're going to need to take a little bit longer using this process. But this process you could literally do in 10 minutes if you whiz through it, or you could spend a couple of hours doing it. But in all cases, it will get you a full picture of the problem to allow you to get perhaps the best possible solution going ahead. So our first thing is to say, what's my goal? What am I actually trying to achieve? And we're going to ask ourselves a series of why questions to get to the root of what is the problem. And this might be slightly tricky with our imaginary company, but if it was your own organization that you were trying to find a solution for, then it's asking yourself that question. You'll know more about it. We're going to have an imaginary company that we don't even know, so we're going to make some of this up. And then you're going to ask the reality, what do I have? What is missing? So I'm just going to stop sharing this document and start sharing the document that you've got, and we're going to work our way through it. So going to just check you can all see this Word document. Yeah. Okay, so our situation is sales have dropped. And I want you to imagine that you're either part of this company or that you might well be a customer of this company. It's an imaginary company. It's selling some stuff, and you can make up in your mind what this stuff might be. But the question is, our sales have dropped, and so the first question is why. So if you think you've got an imaginary reason why the sales have dropped, give us a wave. And between Kate and I, in fact, Kate, if you could do it, because it's hard for me to see and share the participants. Anybody got a reason why sales have dropped? I can see a wave there. Kim?
We've been out of stock.
Sorry, Kim, could you say?
We've been out of stock.
You're out of stock. Okay. Okay, so yeah, that's a really good one, because sometimes people can look at it and go, oh, my sales have dropped, but not actually investigate, well, they've dropped because you haven't actually got enough to sell. Okay, so it's out of stock. We're out of stock. We're run low on stock. So then the question is why? Why are we out of stock? Anybody like to explain why we might be out of stock? Was that Steve waving then? Yeah, Steve's waving.
On getting hold of components, necessary pieces, necessary parts.
So it's actually some components that are missing. It's not actually that we can't get hold of the whole thing, it's some components we're having difficulty with, okay?
So you can't make it.
And why is that? Why have we got that problem? So we've got
Kim paid the bill.
Steve's suggesting it's because you haven't paid the bill. Should we have Kim's view as to why this might be happening?
Because we had excellent sales the month before.
Okay, so we've got great sales the month before, but Steve has also said we haven't paid them yet. Okay, all right. I can spell month, but my keyboard couldn't move as fast as me. Okay, so can you see what we're trying to do is get to the root of the problem as to why sales have dropped? Initially, if we're going to be reactionary, like, oh, sales have dropped, well, I need to put a sale on. Well, we can't put a sale on, actually, if we can't actually get the items together. So have we got to the root yet of what is the problem as to why we've got this issue? We might not be quite there yet. The positive is we've got great sales the month before. We haven't paid them yet. We can't get the components, but we need to investigate, is it just because we haven't paid them yet, or is actually there an issue with that particular supplier? So actually, for the purpose of this, we'll actually say when we investigate it a little bit further, is that the supplier has problems. Okay, so what we'll do for this, for the purpose of speed of today, we'll say we've got to the root of the problem. When we first look at this, sales have dropped. But as we've asked a series of questions, we've realized that actually it's not so much about our sales, but actually it's about our supplier. So then we've got a couple of questions. What am I actually trying to achieve as a company? And that's really important for us to answer. Is it just about sales, or is it actually about quality product? Because this could be really key, particularly with this problem. So actually, I'm going to answer that one. What we're actually trying to achieve is a quality product for people. Sales is secondary. We do want to obviously make lots of money as a company, but it's the quality product that we're after. What has been used before, that might help. And so we might just be asking, well, have I done anything before? So have I ever been in a situation before where I haven't had something, or the person I've been using, I've got some difficulties with? So what's been used before is I've contacted friends about the situation. And is there anything, so when this absolute one here is, what does the authority in this area have to say on it? It's just asking ourselves the question, you know, perhaps what has business experts said, that's where we might jot that sort of thing. Or is there any kind of national thing that says about what we should or shouldn't do with regards to that? So there might be, for example, a thing around tendering. So we might have to consider that in our particular problem here. Or there might be some kind of a business advice that we might want to find out with regards to what does the business advice say if you're in this kind of situation. So then we come to our actual goal. So in this scenario now, we need to be clear in actually what is it I want to achieve. So has anybody got a quick answer for this one? Now that we've got to this point, it's not just that we need to try and put a sale on or anything. We've realized it's an issue with regards to our supply chain. So Steve, what's our goal? You give me a wave.
Let's have a look. Oh, right, yeah, just perhaps to try and avoid a single source for bits and pieces that you need to make something.
So it's about not having a single source. It's about ensuring that we have a range of sources for our particular items, our components.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's our goal. That's actually what we're going to try and achieve and improve on. And so then we have two questions. What do I have and what's missing? Do we have any other contacts on any other particular suppliers? So we might, for example, as part of that, we might have one supplier that we know, extra to what we have already. And then we might be asking ourselves, well, what is missing? I don't know, what have I got missing? What do I need? I need more suppliers. Is there anything else I need? I need some components. And we've got a waiver. So come and help me on this one then, Liz.
What you need to do is have a preferred suppliers list. So you actually investigate your suppliers and make sure that you ask them questions before you have them on your list.
So I need a preferred suppliers list.
Yeah.
And on that, there's some good questions. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you have criteria that they have to meet to actually be your supplier.
Yeah, and then that will stop me falling into this problem again. Yeah,
Yeah.
great. So can you see, by working through this beginning part about our goal, we get a much clearer picture. And actually, Liz's information there helps me to then go, do you know what? Yeah, I'm not only trying to solve this one problem, I'm trying to stop this happening again. Because if this happens again, if I'm looking at having a quality product and I'm looking at making sure that I give a quality service to my customers, I'm going to let them down again if I let this happen again. So I've got both a short and a medium term issue here that I could solve two problems at once. Okay, so I'm just going to unshare that screen and we're just going to go back into the other one again. So can you see, by us being clearly defining actually what the problem is in the first place, we've moved from thinking, oh, just my sales have dropped, to really narrowing it down to an issue that we have both short-term, e.g. components, but actually it's highlighted something that was a problem in my processes right at the beginning. So a couple of you here that work with processes are like jumping up and down going, yes, 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 we need to be thinking about that too. So the other issue is just thinking about diversity. Now, that can come in a range of things. Obviously, we're hearing a lot about that in terms of ethnic or religious type of diversity, but it's also just, in this case, thinking about diversity of the people or the stakeholders involved in the way we're looking at. Now, there's a coaching approach called the meta mirror, which is about considering other perspectives. So when we go into a problem, we tend to think about it just from our perspective. But what a meta mirror does literally is get another seat and sit at it in that seat. So instead of sitting at it in our seat as the boss's seat, we might look at it from different members of staff's perspective, from customers' perspectives, from an online customer's perspective, or from a walking in the shop type perspective. So considering other perspectives is really useful in problem solving as well. Matthew Said, if you want a good read, has the book Rebel Ideas, which helps us think about this concept. We tend to work in little echo chambers where we surround ourselves with people of the same type of thinking. Trying to think about it from other people's perspectives allows us to get a full 360-degree view of the problem. So if we're looking at our problem now, it's thinking about it, what's it like in this particular one? We are selling some things. So we might have a shop customer, we might have an online customer. What is it like from their perspective? We may have staff. What is it like from their perspective? And when you're thinking about their perspectives, you're looking at things like the media that we're using, you're looking at the cost, you're looking at the product itself, you're looking at what the competition are asking. And so you're looking at it from their perspective. So again, just popping out of this one and back into the other one. So when you look at it from their perspective, we're just, at the moment, we're not coming up with solutions from their perspective, but we are thinking about what's it like from their perspective as they're looking at this problem. And it might even be In this case, because there's a supply issue, we may have supplier as one of our things. But let's just think about it from a customer's perspective. Is there anything from a customer's perspective that they might offer? So let's pick customer number one, and let's assume that we've got something online that we're offering. And then there's also a shop customer that we're coming in with as well. So the online customer, what is their experience? Have we got any waivers that can assist me with this one? Now, it's quite hard because it's an imaginary. We've got a wave from Liz. Good old Liz, she's helping me out here.
Okay, I'm just going to go with, they're going to need to be able to order everything easily. So it's going to ease of access.
Yeah, they want it ordered easily. And do they want it delivered really quickly as well?
Normally.
Yeah.
I would.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? We've got away from Alan. Alan, are you going to give me the online customer, or are you going to give me the shop customer?
Well, just a thought about the online customer, looking at some of my own recent experience. The critical thing there is they're going to want information. If there's a hold up, they need to know what the hold up is, why it's happened, and how long they're going to have to wait.
Yeah, and that's really good. So what we're getting now is we're getting, this situation. I'm looking at it from the customer's perspective. If I've got a delay, I need to put that up on the site. And exactly as you said, why is it happening? And perhaps also they want to know, and when is the expected kind of improvement as part of that. So we're beginning to think about how we manage our customers so it doesn't affect long-term sales. What about the shop customer?
Yeah, well, I mean, the things that you just mentioned about customer online could apply to shop customer too.
Yeah.
It's just that one is delivered, one is a virtual environment, the other one isn't.
Yeah, great. So same kind of issue. If they can't get hold of it, they need to know why.
But also maybe, are there alternatives they could use that could actually act as as a substitute?
Yeah, and actually we could potentially do that if we've got something in our own line, or we have a partner company that we work with, so that we're actually serving our customer. Because if it brings back to what I'm trying to do as a quality service for my customer, as well as a quality product. Okay, so can you see, because of time, we'll move on from this one, but we begin to look at things from other people's perspectives and jot that down. It helps us to get some clarity. Right, okay, going to come off this one and back into this one again. Okay, so the next stage, having thought around what actually is the root of my problem, what's the perspectives I need to consider, is we then start to think about our different options. Now, when you do problem solving, a lot of us will tend to have one particular approach or another. You've got this listed in your handout. Some of us may, for example, just examine the detail and evaluate what's missing. For some of us, we may be really creative and just like the creative ideas. And all of these are good problem solving approaches. As you look at them, you might find that you lean towards one or the other. But if you only take one, we could potentially miss things out. So for example, if you just went for creative, which is what we're going to look at now, with lots of different ideas, that might give you lots of different ideas. But if you haven't actually examined what is maybe historically has or hasn't worked, or if you haven't looked at what the authoritative source is, e.g. what does the government or the industry say you have to do legally, you could end up coming up with some amazingly creative ideas, spending time on production for it, but missing out the fact that it's illegal. So actually, it's important that we work through a range of these, which is actually what this sheet that I'm working through with you, I'm going to give you, actually does, so that we try and get the full picture. But we look now at the creative ways of doing things. But if you go, actually, Colin, I haven't got time for the sheet, then this that you've got on your handout, just ask yourself this series of questions and literally jot one-word answers. So if you've got to respond really quickly to a problem, you could literally work through this. I've done this with people in 10 minutes. Often when we're facing a problem, we think, I haven't got time. But working through it quickly, just with these questions, you can normally create for yourself 10 minutes, give yourself a breathing space. It'll help you make a decision that perhaps tries to cater for all the issues that you can face. And in an ideal world, if you can get one or two of you together, a couple of heads together on it, particularly if you come from different perspectives, it might help you solve the problem. What we tend to do is try and solve problems at our higher level, particularly if we work with a number of people. if we can involve people that work for us or with us and get their perspective in this quick problem solving, we're more likely to avoid problems that we face. Okay, so sales have dropped. What we're going to do is look at the different ideas that we can solve this with. So we're going to work through this one together. So the best way to do this particular scenario is actually, first of all, to rattle off a whole load of different ideas that we can do. What we tend to do is go, oh no, but I couldn't do that. Because don't, just rattle them down, even if you think they won't work, because it might be that a bit of that idea with a bit of another idea helps you to create an idea that really does work. So again, this is where some quick waving and some quick firing. We're going to try and list, because of time, at least 5, and then I'm just going to show you what you then do, because you then evaluate the pros and the cons. So we know our situation. We've got an issue with our supplier. We've got an issue with regards to the kind of list that Liz talked about earlier. We haven't got a preferred suppliers list where we've checked out the situation in the first place to make sure that actually they're a quality supplier in the first place. And now we've been bitten on the bum because we didn't have that list in the first place. So what are the ideas that we can do? So lots of quick firing ideas here. I'm keeping Kate on her toes. This is her first role as co-host, unmuting, and she's going, thank you very much, Colin. So what ideas could we do to solve this? Wave from Steve.
Can the product be made easier to manufacture or make?
Okay. Somebody else got another idea? What could we do? One from Liz.
Change supplier.
Change supplier. So we just find a new supplier. Okay. What else can we do? One from Kim.
Offer customers alternatives.
I think we had Shelley at one at a wave, and then I think we had one from Alan too.
Yes, mine was depending on where the supplier is, find a more local supplier, possibly.
Yeah, great. Alan, you've got one. Thank you.
Yep. If you start hitting your networks and your social media to find new partners and reliable suppliers on recommendation.
Right. Okay. Now, if we had more time, we'd rattle off a whole load because we've still got a relatively short amount that we're picking from. We might well also include in that, actually, what I need to, because I've been burnt here, I need to talk to some people who actually kind of know what they're doing with regards to this. You know, actually, I know Liz. She might be able to tell me what the legal bit is around suppliers, because she talked to me once about this preferred suppliers list. Oh, I wasn't really listening, but perhaps I should have been. I'll talk to her. And so you might then you might ask an expert about any law issue as part of this, because you realise actually I need to do it. So you've rattled off a whole load. If you had more time, you'd list even more. And then what you do is you look at the pros and cons. Well, what is the advantage of me going for an easier supplier? What is the disadvantage of me doing that? What's the advantage of changing supplier? What's the disadvantage? So an advantage could be, I could find one with all the stuff I need. A disadvantage could be, if I rush straight into it, I might end up with the same problem as before. Offer the customer alternative. That means my customer's looked after. The disadvantage, well, the alternative isn't quite as good as the one they're trying to get. Find a local supplier, easy access, I know them, I build a local network, I can have much closer liaison. Disadvantage might be, I'm struggling, but you might give it a bit of time, you might think of it as, oh, they're smaller, or, you know, depending which local supplier you're picking. Ask network for social media for new partners. I might find a whole range of ideas. I'll have a first-hand account of someone that's found its work really well. Disadvantage, my current supplier might know I'm looking for another one and might get the hump with me and might not even provide me with the stuff I currently need from them. The ask an expert about the law, I won't be caught out. I'll know I get it right this time. I won't be burnt later on. Disadvantage, And this is where Liz and others say, there is no disadvantage, Colin. You should always ask and check with us first. And so can you see, we just weigh up what those things are. We think of creative ideas. We don't stop our thinking. We list a whole load, even if we think it's nonsense. And then we go back and evaluate the pros and cons. Now, bear in mind, we'll have a confirmation bias within us. We'll kind of want to lean towards something. So again, where you can, ask a few others to chip in on this one, because they might see something that you're not seeing. And then the last part of the process is just thinking, who else can I consider? Who can I collaborate with? Who do I know in my networks? Who do I know in my networks in my field? Who do I know in my networks that aren't in my field that actually might be a good cross collaboration and make me even stronger in this? And then when you've worked through all of that, you then think, okay, so lastly, what's the optimal solution from our perspective, from all that we know at this time? The thing about problem solving is sometimes something else might come along that we haven't really realized. And that's why it's important to get as full a picture as possible. But we should also know that when we're trying to come up with either an innovation or solve a problem, we can only make it based on the information that we do have at the time. And we shouldn't be hard on ourselves if we've missed something, apart from the legal bit of going to check with people what's our situation there. So just going to come out of that one and share the other screen again. So the last part then is just weighing up what's the best solution. And you should hopefully at that stage have a much fuller picture. Now, I know I've rattled through that fairly quickly because effectively we've gone through a 2-hour training session in about half an hour. Obviously you get much more hands-on experience as part of that. But hopefully you can see the process rather than shooting straight in on what seemed the obvious problem. And I know this is an imaginary company we've just done, but the obvious problem was my sales have dropped. But actually, as we investigated it, it actually wasn't anything to do with sales. It was actually to do with the supplier. And actually, as Liz helped us unfurl, actually, it was a problem right back at the beginning in the processes. We'd just gone for a company that seemed at the time to offer some good stuff, but we hadn't checked things out in detail about the supplier, and actually a preferred suppliers list would really help. So we've got a short-term problem, but there's also a longer-term problem that we can then work through. But by asking the questions right at the beginning, it helped us to evaluate actually what was the problem, and then the creative approach allowed us to follow that through. So I'm just going to stop sharing that for the moment and invite for questions, which I think goes back to Alan to host, and if Steve's waving already, so hopefully we can answer the question for Steve.
Yes, Steve. Hang on, we're not hearing you, mate.
He's not muted.
Right. We're not hearing you, Steve. I'm sorry. That's better. Try again.
Now?
Yes, we can.
Brilliant. Okay. It's to be prepared to ask a fairly uncomfortable question. Are we doing something wrong?
Absolutely.
Because I used to work for a company who basically decided to go from 30-day to 90-day payment terms. And then the supplier says, no, mate, I'm not going to do any more work for you. So all their suppliers just dropped. And it took a while for them to appreciate that maybe some of their own actions actually were the cause of all the dismay.
And that's where actually, as I said several times, when you just look at it from yourself, we miss that. The next stage is to do what I did, the meta mirror. And like we said, almost sit in, try and look at it from their perspective. How does it look? But we will still have a bit of confirmation bias. So again, where we can, actually asking a member of our team. If we work with teams, ask them at different levels as well, the person on the shop floor, the person who's the next layer beneath us. If we can, ask our supplier, depending what we're looking at, we get a full picture. But of course, that does rely on us being emotionally intelligent and self-reflective enough to go, I want the best solution here, and even if that means challenging myself. So that's a brilliant point, Steve, and we've got to be bold and brave enough to do that.
Very, very good. Kim, you had a point. Can we unmute Kim, please? Can you unmute yourself?
To add to Steve's, that his company clearly never dealt with supermarkets or department stores where they dictate the terms. You don't choose when you're going to get paid. So. Yeah,
but you can choose whether you have them as a customer or not, or make the sacrifice if you need to make the sacrifice. I do sympathise with that one, Steve, because working in video as you do. Back in the day, I was working with a production company. It was on 90-day terms with their client. I finished up on 120-day terms for my scripts. Other point. Bob, were you wanting to say something? Yes, okay, Bob.
Yes, talking about diversity, we in our situation we had to go online and sell our product online. We then find that the canning company, who we've talked to, can't produce what we want. We've gone to another one who produce the cans. We want to add to our range. We find they can't do that. So we are now going to help a canning company in Suffolk. We're going to invest some money in the company, which they will pay us back. So we've got total control. And the thing is that when you've got a product and you can't control it, you're at their mercy. So if you get in this situation, which we did, we wanted to launch a couple of new products. We got held up. We now are going to take control of the canning company. So thank you, Colin, for mentioning it earlier. It's brilliant. And there's all sorts of pitfalls that, you know, not only do they change the players on the pitch, they change the pitch and change everything. So you've got to be so flexible.
Yeah, and I think one of it comes back to, again, going right back to the beginning of the process. Sometimes we have to react really quickly, don't we? And I know in your context, just as you were sort of trying to get this all together, we then obviously had coronavirus, so you had to shift it really quickly.
We had to shift it. I mean, you know, we launched on Valentine's Day, and, you know, 23rd of March, it stopped. So we didn't even have a month. And we had everybody say, yep, great. So we've had to completely change. We weren't going to go online. We were never going to sell to the public.
Yeah, so you had to diversify, and sometimes you have to do that quite quickly, but wherever possible, taking yourself right back to the beginning question, which is, again, what is it actually I'm trying to achieve?
Trying to do.
And then again, looking ahead. So actually you're talking about that canning scenario. When you've got the time to, you go, where do I want to take this? And if you know, actually, this is the current product, but this is the second and the third. And that then comes back to Liz's question about your preferred suppliers list, that then you ask your suppliers those questions, which fulfill not only your immediate problem, but where you see it potentially going as well. So actually that innovation is a huge thing, isn't it? Because you've got that immediate innovation, but where do I then want to take it? And sometimes we go, well, this is what I'm planning, and then something evolves. So of course we can't predict that one, but and an opportunity comes our way. But wherever we can, asking us that question to predict ahead allows us then to log that in, and then links with Liz's one about that preferred suppliers list, because then we get the right person early on.
See, the biggest problem we had delivery of a load of cans with a date on that ended. We had to shift them. We could not wait until October or September, October, when the pubs might sell them. We had a real problem, and that was the date on the can, because a lot of businesses will not buy anything 3 months after the date ends. So we had to innovate. It was as simple as that.
Yeah. Any other questions? Another one from Steve.
Yeah, I think the idea of having processes there is, of course, essential, but I think there's a big difference between process and being on a set of rails. The process needs to be something that is adaptable to situations. Because I used to work with preferred suppliers lists, but because we had to stick with them, the preferred suppliers couldn't supply what we needed, but somebody that wasn't on the list could. And it took us a long while to actually finally persuade our procurement people, look, just get off your rails and just get the stuff from here, because then we can now meet our customers' demand. So I think process is essential, but I think that process needs to be just as adaptable as the people that run it.
Yeah, and again, it comes back to that thing, wherever you can, as much thinking you can do at the beginning around where is it we want to head, what is it we want to innovate, where could this potentially go, and so that you actually, you're right, there are times you need to flex, but if we can get the right rails right at the beginning, there is less reason to do that. And we know actually sometimes things come in and suddenly change, like coronavirus or other scenarios, other industry things happen that stop us. And so we do need to have that flexibility. But again, if we're looking to change, it's always important to that question around who do I know, who are my contacts, that we do build a network where we can actually go, yeah, who can I check in terms of legal, who can I check in terms of this, because we don't then want to make a solution that actually then causes us further problems down the line. So it's about that. It's about trying to get it as much right as we can at the beginning, but if we are in the position where we have to change, again, asking some of those questions that help you to then make the right decision, so that we don't jump into something that might seem like the short-term solution, but then causes a longer-term problem. Okay, we're at 15:15, so I don't know if there is one more question. If not, we can wrap up. Nobody's waving, so I think it's over to you, Alan.
Thank you. I got myself muted. Thank you very much indeed, Colin. Very, very useful session indeed. And certainly applies to some things I'm dealing with at the moment, because I'm looking to basically revamp my product off my entire offering. So useful to have a framework to do it in. Thank you very much indeed. Can we all express our appreciation in such ways as we can do silently? Thank you very much indeed, Colin.
Thank you.
Am I right in thinking is there something you were going to send out to us?
Yeah, so you'll get after this. Kate's got it. There's an email that will come with a link to a free ebook, which has some more stuff around innovation. There's also various links to some videos that may just help around managing in kind of challenging times. If you've not had enough of looking at my face and hearing my voice, then there's some bits for you there. Some little freebies. You've obviously got the pro forma on your thing, so and a series of questions you can ask yourself. So just feel free to use that on any small or any big challenge. It can literally be used. Certainly that series of questions I've broken down. Work your way through those questions. It can be as simple as that. So that sheet's coming out, and also you'll hopefully have my email link on that as well. If any of you have got any further questions, want any help, do please let me know. I can perhaps give you a kind of coaching session that will help you perhaps work through a problem and ask you a series of questions. Sometimes just doing that with somebody else is helpful, because they'll ask you questions you haven't thought of. And all the best for your problem solving.
Thank you very much indeed, Colin. And please, everyone, do remind people that if they missed this session, and they shouldn't have done, they will in due course be able to pick up a recording of it from the Stowmarket Chamber site. So put that around on social media so that we can get the best outcome for everybody from this, and that Colin's word gets out to the people who need it. Thanks again, Colin, and thank you all for coming.
Cheers, bye.
Bye, everyone.